From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. $70 million. That's the amount a utility company will pay to a community in northwestern Colorado when it shuts down a coal plant that drives a large part of the local economy. Tri-State Energy plans to close its coal-fired power station in Craig 4 years from now. The closure comes as Colorado moves to do away with coal-fired power and reduce its reliance on fossil fuels. The $70 million payment to Craig and Moffat County sets a precedent. It's the first time a utility company that closes a coal plant will pay money to address the hole that's left behind in the regional economy. So how did the settlement come together? And how does it create a blueprint for Colorado communities facing similar shutdowns? We're joined today by Eli Pace. He's editor of the Steamboat Pilot and Today and the Craig Press, and he's been covering this deal. Eli, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Eli, the Tri-State, it's a massive operation in a town of 9,000 people. Paint a picture for us. How central to Craig is the Tri-State plant?
I mean, easily it is one of the biggest pieces of the local economy. And if you look at the forecast for what could happen in Craig and Moffat County economically after the closure of the power plant, and then also the two main coal mines that feed it, it's akin to a natural disaster hitting your community. It would be absolutely huge.
Wow.
For the losses of jobs as well as revenue for local taxing districts. And so there's really no sector in Craig or Moffat County that this closure will not touch, from the schools to the housing market. It is wide ranging and across the board.
Do we have a sense of any of those numbers? I mean, how will it affect Craig in terms of the number of job losses or lost tax revenue?
More than 400 high-paying jobs in the community are expected to be lost, in addition to more than 43% of local taxing districts' revenue from property taxes.
So I mentioned a $70 million number. How do you translate those losses to $70 million rather than some other number?
Well, I'd seen that a lot of Moffat County and Craig officials had been aiming for, I believe it was $118 million in some of the early negotiations. They pegged a lot of those numbers based on forecast for lost revenue and what it would mean to the community. Well,
in a town where the economy is about to be turned on its head, I bet there are a lot of opinions about how to use that $70 million. What do local leaders plan to do with it?
Well, I still think they're working through the details for exactly how this money will be used. Ultimately, there will be a $22 million that is pretty much guaranteed to Craig. That money will go into a trust fund that they are setting up that will fund economic development projects into perpetuity. There's another $48 million that is promised to Craig but could be offset by new investments. New investments are seen among local officials as far preferable to just direct payments, because of course those new investments would mean new jobs, and that would continue for decades after the payments are scheduled to stop. So really the settlement agreement, in addition to the $22 million, creates an incentive for Tri-State to reinvest in the community, and I think that was also a really big piece for local leaders.
I mean, what would those new investments that you mentioned be?
Well, one of them's already kind of in the works. Tri-State has purchased a solar garden that is coming online, I believe, in 2025 in Moffat County. So that'll be a small piece of it. There's also been talk about kind of a hydro battery storage and some other things like that.
Well, how are community leaders feeling about this settlement? What has the response been?
Largely, it has been celebratory. I know community leaders feel like this is a landmark agreement. They feel like it is trend-setting. Speaking to the mayor of Craig, Chris Nichols, he told me that he felt like they came out of this negotiation process far better than they would have had they not engaged it from a standpoint of local leadership getting involved. And so I don't think Craig got everything it wanted. I don't think Moffat County got everything it wanted. You know, through a negotiation process, there's always a little give and take. But I do know that county commissioners and city council members, all of them are celebrating this agreement, and they're pretty happy with the way it came out.
Well, even with this payment, this has to be a bit of a scary moment for residents of Craig and Moffat County. What are the challenges they face?
Well, it's an extremely rural area. It's an extremely working class community. And when you have such a departure of a major employer, and I mean, these are really good, high paying jobs that have been in this community. Really, I mean, it's almost generational. And so there is a lot of fear. And you also experience some anger because there's a lot of folks that don't quite see the energy transition in kind of the climate change light, but see it more on the local economic impact. And they feel like they have really worked hard to keep the lights on for a very long time. And now, as the world really moves away from fossil fuels and specifically coal, they're kind of left in the lurch. Now, speaking to people in Craig, I have not talked to one person who thinks that Craig is just going to wither up and disappear or blow away.
And I've heard about a new business, distillery that is trying to get started. I'm wondering if people are starting new businesses to kind of offset the plant closure.
I think what you're talking about might be the Bad Alibi distillery. I know that the people behind that were tied to the coal industry, and they have since kind of transitioned, and they are spinning that into a new business that does seem very exciting. I know a lot of the college leaders locally, they're looking at different programs that they might be able to offer that could really help the workforce through it. I've heard that there's a fear that about a third of them could be lost and will chase those cold jobs to other locations where they can still find them.
It feels pretty inevitable that other communities in Colorado will see coal plants shut down in the years ahead. What do you think those other communities could learn from this agreement?
Well, really, I think that the strongest pieces of this agreement are the parts that set Craig and Moffat County up for the future. And getting that $22 million guaranteed for future economic development projects, that's huge. You know, Craig really wanted to be in the driver's seat, both Craig and Moffat County. And they feel like they've gotten some tools and pieces out of this that give them some control and give them some ability to kind of move forward through this transition. And I think that'll be huge for them. And I think that's really kind of the envy of coal communities here. Craig feels pretty good about this one.
Eli, thank you so much for talking about this with me today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Eli Pace is editor of the Steamboat Pilot and Today and the Craig Press. We'll put a link to his story in the episode notes and at kunc.org. Here at In the NOCO, we love to hear feedback from our listeners. Do you have ideas on how we might cover renewable energy? Or maybe a reaction to our recent interview on highway design? Or a question about something you've always wanted to know about Colorado? You can email us or send a voice memo to noco@kunc.org. That's NOCO@kunc.org. And that's it for us today on In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thank you so much for listening.